Cavs on the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Aligned Health Center. Aligned Health Center is the first chiropractic biophysics clinic in Northern Ohio. The team at Aligned Health Center, they're just the best. They help patients with back pain, neck pain, migraines, ADHD, digestive issues, sleep disturbance, whiplash, scoliosis, and much more. And along with chiropractic biophysics, Aligned Health Center is also the leading clinic in regenerative medicine. You may have heard of it as stem cell injections. And listen, you don't have to be an NBA player to get this done or have this treatment or to get checked out. If you have low back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, arthritis, check out the Regenerative Medicine Clinic at Aligned Health Center. Come in for a free consultation, get some imaging done and x-rays to see how Aligned Health Center can help you. There are no multiple shots and is complete with physical therapy built into the process, so there's no downtime. And look, this gets even better. Aligned Health Center doesn't charge people for x-rays or exams. They just don't. They don't bill you later either. They let you know right up front, right away, how much it's going to cost, and they're transparent about the process. They are number one for a reason. So call Aligned Health Center today. What's it going to hurt? 440-385-7357 or visit their website at alignedhealthcenters.com to make an appointment. And also to learn more about how Aligned Health Center can help you. Again, that's alignedhealthcenters.com. Give them a call at 440-385-7357. The link and the number will be in the show notes. And if you haven't heard, Press Play is really making some noise in the podcasting world. 2 weeks ago, we launched Up Next, a show all about your favorite streaming content with hosts Kristen Aviles and Christina Walter. You'll laugh, you may cry, and you'll most certainly want to watch what they are watching. Check it out. They're brilliant. They're the best. Up Next, some really good stuff there. Last week, we launched the Ray Guy and Rhoda Show. R&R is back exclusively with the Press Play Podcast Network. Catch Michael, Ray Guy, and Kenny Rhoda as they talk all things sports and only the way that they can. They're producing content right now, so make sure to check that out. Ray Guy and Rhoda. And this week, we're launching the Dennis Maniloff Show. Excited to have D-Man on board with us. He is one of the best in the biz, and we're excited to offer his voice and insight on local and national sports. And who knows, he may even dip into trending topics and content and politics. We don't know. It's D-Man Unleashed, no holds barred. Check out the Dennis Maniloff Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I am your host, Chase Smith, and with me, he's the editor and writer at 48minutes.com, the assistant editor at Outkick.com. He is our Cavs insider, national NBA writers, Sam Amico. Sam, season's coming to a close, man. We're almost there.
It's gone fast. Everything's been compacted into a very tight schedule. So, yeah, here we are. We're almost at the end, and it's time to start thinking about the lottery and off-season stuff already.
We are 3.5 weeks left of the season. I mean, there's not much left. What is like the tally here? Where are we at, Sam?
Somewhere in there. I kind of just really am like the coaches always say, take it game by game or day to day or whatever. So, but Sunday, May 16th is the final game against the Brooklyn Nets.
Less than a month away. And Sam, I got to say, it was it fun the past week and a half to pretend the Cavs could make the play-in game? Was that fun, or was that just this, we're bored because the Indians aren't playing well and the Browns, they signed Clowney, which is a nice distraction, but like, was that just a waste of emotion? Was it fun, Sam? Was it worth it? Because there's no way the Cavs are making the playoffs.
I think that they had, a shot there that was kind of realistic. It's not looking so realistic now, but I think that they've done some things this year that have made me enjoy watching them more than each of the past 2 years. So, I mean, it's okay to fight for that play-in game and dream about it, but it's not going to happen.
So the Cavs are 3-7 their last 10 games. They've lost 3 straight, one to a Levine-less Bulls, which I think kind of sealed the deal on any playoff aspirations. At least the fans kind of saw a realistic way to. Sam, I want to play this segment, and then after the break, we'll talk about the Week 17 slate and Week 18 coming up. This is a segment we've done before in the past. I don't think we've done it this season yet. A segment called Percentages and Probabilities. Here's how it works. I'm going to offer you a prediction. Sam, you give us a percentage chance of it coming true. All
okay.
Right. Percentage chance of it coming through. The first prediction, the Cavs will make the play-in game as the 10 seed. Where are we at with that?
I would give that about a 15% chance because they're they're 4 games behind the Bulls, who would be the 10th seed at this recording, but the Wizards are tied with the Bulls, so consider the Wizards 11, and the Raptors are only half game behind the Bulls, so consider them 12. The Cavs would have, they'd have to pass 3 teams. They'd have to pass Toronto, Washington, and Chicago, and they're 4 games back, and those teams are playing okay. Washington has won 7 of their last 10. The Bulls have gone 2-1 without Levine, and the Raptors have won 6. So those teams are all playing relatively well, and they all want to get into that play-in game. Right now it'd be against the Pacers. So I just don't see it. It doesn't look very promising for the Cavs, in my opinion.
Sam gives it a 15%. 3 of the next 4 games the Cavs play in Chicago, at Charlotte, at Washington, at Toronto. No, I'm sorry. It's not at Chicago. It's in Cleveland. Sorry, they're at the Rock Wednesday when you're listening to this. They play the Bulls tonight at the Rock. Can I call it the Rock? I don't hear anyone else call it the Rock. You hear people call it the Rock?
Well, start a thing. I've heard people call it the Rock.
Well, we're going to call it the Rock. They're at the Rock. Play the Bulls tonight. 7 o'clock tip off. But then they play the Hornets, they play the Wizards and the Raptors. And looking at their schedule, I see the Wizards on there again. The Wizards on there again. So they play the Wizards 3 more times, Sam, the Raptors once, and the Bulls 1 more time. There is a possibility if they start reeling off some wins that they could do it. I think 15% is a little high. I'm going to give it 7% that they make that play-in game.
I almost went with 7.
Yeah,
I almost said 7. Yeah.
Well, 7 and 15, anywhere between 7 and 15. Too many things have to go right, and this team just has been too inconsistent, and I don't see it happening. Sam, we've talked about it before. I think this is this team's ceiling, and I know that might be hard to hear for some people. I think as long as we have our current roster makeup as it is, this is what we're going to be. More likely in the lottery.
Yeah, that very well could be. That very well could be. It's right now they've been. Now, some of that has to do with youth, but some of it may just be inconsistency, inconsistent players, inconsistent chemistry. Could be that could be a long-term thing. I don't know. I mean, we can't predict that accurately right now, but
sure we can. Well, that's why we have a podcast, Sam. We're going to predict it accurately with predictions and probabilities. Can I go to the next one?
Please do.
Okay. What about this? Colin Sexton will not be on the team at the start of the season next year. He will not be on the team.
So my percentage is going to be what if he weren't on the team.
Correct. So
I would say that's 25%. I'd give that a little higher. I don't think that they're looking to trade him. I can almost assure you that they're not at the moment. But I think that they are coming to terms with the idea that maybe, just maybe, our backcourt's a little small, and maybe Darius Garland's the guy we want as our alpha male. Now, I'm not saying that that's the right decision or that's the perfect decision, or but maybe that's something that the Cavs front office may be considering. I think that's something that they're thinking about, and I think it's unlikely. I think there's a 75% chance that Sexton will be back, but I think that there's a 25% chance he might not. So I don't, again, we've talked about this before. You can love them both. You don't have to love Garland and think that you don't love Sexton, but you don't have to be in love with the idea of this being a long-term thing, because frankly, I don't think it is. I just, the way I look at it, if these, I've said this before on here, Chase, if those guys are still in the same backcourt in 4 or 5 years, I'll be stunned. Just absolutely stunned.
Sam, who is a comp for Sexton in the league right now? Who would you say is his comp?
Boy, it's hard to tell. I mean, we've heard the Lou Williams comparisons. I think that that's pretty fair. I know that there's some other guys that are kind of like that, maybe a Clarkson type, Jordan Clarkson. And, people might take that as an insult, but it's not. I mean, Jordan Clarkson's killing it for the best team in the league.
Well, I think a lot. Quinn Snyder, I think, deserves all the credit for that right there.
Well, Quinn Snyder, I mean, obviously that team in Utah has some nice players, but there's no way they should be as good as they are. And that's a lot. The Utah's just got such a great culture, and they've had it going back to before the days of even Jerry Sloan. They don't really fire coaches. They let it play out. They give it time. And, the Cavs can look at kind of the way they've done things without major shakeups. And kind of keeping their core together and having the right coach in place as something that they could, Utah's a team that anybody can achieve realistically. You got to get a little bit of luck, but you got to get the right pieces in place. So anyway, that's where I think Sexton is that kind of player. And maybe, maybe he'll end up being better than Clarkson or those guys. I suspect that he will. I think he has a higher ceiling, but again, that's not an insult to him if he's not any better than Jordan Clarkson ever or Lou Williams especially, who's a very, very nice player and has been for a while. So, I think Sexton is that kind of guy. Everybody gets mad when you say, well, why has he got to come off the bench? I don't necessarily think he does, but most of the time guys who are smaller, whose main attribute, best attribute is just coming in and scoring like crazy, those guys tend to come off the bench.
Yep. I think who he should be modeling his game after is the Jimmy Butlers, is the Russell Westbrooks, that kind of, player. I asked Kevin Love if Sexton reminded him of Russell, and he's, very passionately said no.
I was standing, yeah. He
that was
no,
it.
Not at all, or something.
Yeah. So
I don't know why. Kevin's always very nice to me.
Yeah. Well,
what'd you do to him?
I don't know. I think even Russell is the anomaly in his play style that he's been able to have the success, that he's had, taking teams to the playoffs. Most players who have that mentality, that kind of offensive philosophy, their teams aren't really successful. Jimmy Butler's found a way to funnel that, and has found the right culture. He didn't, Chicago, I think it was working. But I'm not even seeing Sexton kind of hit those benchmarks that those players hit, and as they're becoming the stars of the NBA. I mean, Sexton's had a couple games, but I look at Sexton and I don't see a young Butler. I look at the, kind of points that Russ hit, and I'm not seeing Sexton hit that. It is kind of along the lines of, hey man, he's going to be a role player for a team to provide a spark on that second line. And if that's what it is, and that's, I don't know. We've talked about it before, Sam. I would be surprised. Well, I think that, and here we'll get to the next question here, because it'll play into my answer. Kevin Love will play for another head coach as a member of the Cavs. Percentages and probabilities.
Oh boy.
Because, well, I ask that because
that's a good question.
I think that if Bickerstaff, like, to extend his time with Cleveland, he's going to have a fall guy and going to have to make a move and say, hey, let me do this. And I see this whole Sexton thing playing out, that's going to be Bickerstaff's move to extend his time with the Cavs. No inside information, Sam. That's just looking at the team, looking at how we're going to be in the lottery again. And I'm saying to myself, is Kevin Love really going to play for another head coach for this team?
Well, Kevin Love and Colin Sexton, I mean, what's Colin Sexton played for? He had Ty Lue briefly, right? Ty Lue, and then Larry Drew, and then Beeline, and then Bickerstaff, and Kevin Love. On top of that, you throw in David Blatt. So it's a possibility, and I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the best move. But let me tell you, depending on how the season goes, there's no guarantee that Kobe Altman will be back.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not, GMs tend to bring in their own guys. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think as long as Altman's here, Bickerstaff's safe, and they could hire a different GM at some point, and Bickerstaff would still be safe. So, but look, I mean, they have to start winning some games. And I'm not saying this year, but they have to start showing some progress, because they're getting passed up in the progress department. The Atlanta Hawks are blowing them out of the water in terms of their own rebuild because they added veterans. Are the Cavs really that far ahead of the Detroit Pistons, who really are kind of a mess, the Pistons? Yeah. But I don't know that the Cavs are any further along than them. Maybe what do they have? 2 more wins than the Pistons, who have had a lot of things going on themselves. So I just think they're going to have to start, getting at least into that area of the Indianas and the Charlottes and the Chicagos, where they're pushing really close for a playoff spot. And I think they got to do it pretty quickly next season, or there will be changes. And I don't know that there should be, but there will be, because that's the way pro sports works.
Yep. So percentage and probability that Kevin Love will play for another head coach as a member of the Cavs. You can go a lot of ways with this.
I would say it's probably 10%. I just can't. I don't know. I don't foresee right now them making a major shakeup this offseason, though I think that I get the sense that Kobe Altman's on the hot seat a little bit, and if he is, that would spell trouble probably for JB, because look, if I'm a GM, if they replaced Kobe Altman with me, I would go in there and keep JB Bickerstaff.
Sure.
And say, you got, we're going to try to win games next year, and you're going to be the guy to do it, but if you can't do it, then I'm going to go hire my own guy, because you're Kobe's hire.
Yeah.
Now, if they bring in other GMs may come in and say, yeah, no, man, I'm going with my guy right away. That's why I'm going to take the job. They'll tell Dan Gilbert, that's why I'm taking the jobs, because I want to bring in my coach. So I think that's unlikely right now.
It was a trick question, because I don't think Kevin Love is going to be on the team either.
Right. Well, I was just going to say, however long Love remains with the Cavs, I wouldn't think it's going to be too much longer.
Okay, so let's kind of wrap. There's 2 more here. The percentage and probability that the Cavs will start visibly tanking this season, resting players, resting starters, phantom injuries. What do you get that at?
I think it's like they don't have to rest people. They're not winning anyway. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, I think that, maybe
I wouldn't play Allen. I would come up with another. He has a
He's not going to like that because it's a contract year for him. But yeah, I mean, they may rest him. Nance.
Yeah.
I just don't foresee any great signs that they're going to be going on this big tear to win games. Now, if you really want to lose, you're really only 5 games ahead of the Houston Rockets and Minnesota Timberwolves, and who have the worst record in the league, and then the Pistons and the Magic. I don't think that they're so concerned about that, especially since they finished with the second worst record each of the last 2 years, and they finished fifth in the lottery. So there's your probability is higher, but it's so minuscule that sometimes, I mean, you're almost better just finishing 7th, 6th, or 7th in the reverse order standings, because that seems who's winning the lottery. So
okay,
I don't think that they're going to purposely try to tank. I think they're just not going to be very good.
All right, final one here, Sam. The Cavs core of Garland, Okoro, and Allen will play in a playoff game for the Cavs at some time in their career.
You don't think Sexton's in the core?
Oh, did I leave him out? Whoops.
Yeah. I don't think that was by accident. All right. If I'm just saying those 3, Allen, Okoro, and Garland, they'll play in a playoff game some point in their Cavs career?
Yeah.
Yes, I would say that. I would say the probability of that to me is 90. I'll go 70%.
Whoa, okay. You just went from 90 to 70%. Like you said it, you're like, oh, that sounds too high. I'm gonna bring it down a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, what if they shown me that this is a playoff team? There are a lot of other teams in the Eastern Conference that are probably ahead of them. Boston's not an old team. Boston's a young team. Philly's a young team. These teams are going to be good for a while. Yeah. The Pacers are a guy away. The Miami Heat went to the finals last year. The New York Knicks vastly improved. Yeah. Excellent coach. The Milwaukee Bucks, they can just keep putting in young pieces. And I mean, the Nets are going to be good for a while. So, and the Hornets, they're a piece away. All these teams are kind of closer to regular playoff runs. I'll tell you this.
It sounds like you're talking yourself out of 70% now, Sam. All of a sudden, I'm down to like 49% here.
Well, I don't think Russell Westbrook's going to be in Washington for long, or I think Beal may be, but I think Washington's going to be kind of spinning their wheels for a while. That could open a spot. Toronto, to me, is, I don't know. I just think they're on the way down. I could be wrong. Orlando's really going through a rebuild. Detroit. So, I mean, I think that you can get into, at some point, the Cavs, but they need, Garland, Okoro, and Allen need an elite level kind of guy. If you're not going to have Sexton, you've removed Sexton from the equation for some reason. But I'm going to say that I think that those guys will get a taste of playoffs. My fear is that they're going to continue to be doing what they're doing now, and Garland and Sexton are going to get. And I don't have any reason to believe that they are right now, but actually I do have a reason that they're going to get a little bit fed up with this current arrangement of 2-6-1 players playing. I think. Look, Darius Garland, I know, and I think he likes Colin Sexton just fine. I don't think there's an issue there at all. But I think that his camp would prefer that he has a what do you call it? A traditional shooting guard, kind of a.
When you say his camp, what do you mean by that?
His representation, the guys who are kind of influencing him, agents. I mean, it doesn't all come down to what the agents want by any stretch, but just the people. His dad played in the NBA. He's got a big influence on Darius, and I just think that the people who are close to him would think ideally, and they're probably not wrong. And it's nothing against Colin Sexton, but I just think that people close to him would prefer that would love to see him. Maybe not even prefer. Would love to see how Darius plays with a traditional kind of spot up shooting guard who is an effective spot up shooter. And Colin Sexton is a fantastic player. That's not an insult against him, but are they a fit? I don't know. And I don't know that Garland thinks so. And I don't know that Sexton thinks so. And frankly, I don't know that the Cavs are real sure. So I just think if something,
well, how about this?
Change,
if they haven't figured it out in 50 some games, then that's your answer. Can we say that? I mean, if it's taken them, if they still don't know, that's your answer, Sam. You don't need all this time to figure out if it's going to work.
I frankly, I mean, if I'm making the decision, I have the answer. You know what I mean? I've made the answer, and I'm like, and it's way too soon probably, but I'm like, look, man.
I don't think it's too soon. We knew Luka was special. It didn't take us 50 games to realize Luka was special. It didn't take us X amount of games before we realized that Embiid was special or that Tatum was like. You don't need a full season to figure this out. And some players do blossom late. That happens. I think Butler was a late bloomer. Butler, even Chicago, he was playing with he didn't really show a lot of problems. You know what I mean? But you don't need all these games to figure out if something's going to work, Sam.
Well, and I think that we figured out that they're both very nice players and they have nice careers ahead of them. But I don't know that it's going to be together. And my fear is that one or the other at some point, and they've given no indication of this, so don't get me wrong, but my fear for the Cavs is that one of them's going to say, you know what, I don't want to be here in this situation. And in the NBA, that happens a lot.
And with that logic, we would see another leap from Sexton. I know we've talked about his leap and what we expected from him this year. This was the year he was supposed to lead us to the playoffs. If he was following his trajectory that he had the first couple of years, it got everyone excited. They got everyone on board with a Sexton train that, oh yeah, all aboard. This was the next step. Okay, take us to the playoffs. And he hasn't done it. This is what we were supposed to see.
I think that well, in their defense, I think that they would have gone to the playoffs, at least the play-in game, if, Andre Drummond had signed and stayed and everything went okay with that, and he played the whole year. I think they would have at least gotten to the playoff game.
I mean, you could say that about, KPJ. I mean, there's all these ifs,
KPJ,
you know what I mean? But it didn't. And we're not.
Right. Well, and everybody, and in that situation, everybody needs to be held accountable. I don't think it's all on Sexton.
But when you're the face of the franchise, it is.
Well, they've kind of made him the face of the franchise, maybe a little bit mistakenly through marketing when he first arrived, when he got into town, because they needed one after LeBron left, and he did show promise, and he still shows a lot of promise. I love the kid. I think he's he plays hard. He
agreed. Great attitude.
The name of the game is to put the ball in the basket, and he can do that very well.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he's going to be a long-term solution when your point guard is also 6'1".
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to recap Slate 17 and look ahead to Slate 18 as the season is coming to a close here on May 16th. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us, and then listen in.
Coming up on the next edition of the Regi and Rhoda podcast, Reg, we're going to take this thing the night before the draft. What do you think's going to be happening, man?
I hope Andrew Berry's got his sights on some fantastic edge rusher or cornerback, Kenny. I hope that's what the GM's got in his mind.
We'll be giving you our picks, who we think the Browns should take at 26, or do we think maybe they're going to trade up? Do a little Monty Hall. Let's make a deal, Red. What do you think? Barry going to roll the dice? That's what's coming your way the next time here on the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
And me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, my name's Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger Browns podcast.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomwell CBD store and phenomwellcbd.com. That's like phenomenal, phenomwellcbd.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
All right, we're back with Sam Amico, Cavs on the break, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Sam, Slate 17, the Cavs started off. Man, they beat the Hornets in Charlotte, 103-90. They're looking good. Like, yeah, we got this play-on game. We're going to strive for it. And then they just they ran against, the Steph, who just is playing out of his mind right now. They lost to the Warriors at the Rock, calling it the Rock, on the 15th of April, 109-119. Wasn't really close. And then, Sam, I think I saw more outrage against that Bulls loss on Saturday than I had in any Cavs game in a long time.
Yeah, well, the Pistons one wasn't great either.
But that one was the one where they were like, if we're going to make noise, we need to, this is what we need to do. And they
yeah, right. A very undermanned Pistons team that had players with less experience than even the Cavs.
Yeah, it's a bad loss.
The Cavs just came out and laid an egg. And if I'm not mistaken, they beat Charlotte without Sexton. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, yeah, to me, it's been very up and down, very, and again, it's kind of a weird mix. They kind of have a weird mix in the sense that you do have Kevin Love back. You've had Larry Nance Jr. back for most of those games, except for Detroit. So you have these veteran players, and then and Delhi, and then you also have all these other really young guys who many of whom could still be playing college ball right now.
Yep.
So it's just been, when you have young players, it's up and down. The season's up and down. And you don't really have that one guy who you look at and you say, you say Colin Sexton's our leading scorer. You say Darius Garland's really developing as a point guard, but you don't look at at those anybody and say he's our absolute stud and he's going to be the guy that's going to get it done for us now and in the long term. They don't have, and I'm not talking like LeBron James. I'm talking like a Jason Tatum or, a guy who has that type of potential. And they just don't have that right now. And that's tough to win regularly when you do that. You might steal one, you might catch somebody sleeping, and you might come out and play, real well and look all unified and determined one night. And then the next night you just don't have it. So, that's really what they either got to find that in the draft or find it with a trade. And in order to find it in a trade, you're going to have to give up one of your young guys. You're going to have to give up one of your guys that you consider kind of your prize. You just have to do it.
Well, they will have one final shot, it seems, to make some noise, make some ripples in some, whatever's going on. As we mentioned earlier, 3 of the next 4 games are against the teams ahead of them in the standings. They have the Bulls tonight, the 23rd, Friday in Charlotte, Sunday the 25th in DC against the Wizards, and then Monday they're in Canada against the Raptors. Sam, and then they have the Magic, then the Wizards again.
They'll actually be in Tampa against the Raptors.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Sorry. Thank you.
Same difference.
Yep. But after and then they play the Wizards again after the Magic, but then they got the Heat, Suns, Portland, Dallas, Pacers, Celtics, Wizards, Nets. So you're looking at this, you're like, oh my gosh, are they going to win 3 more games? I mean, it could get bad.
Well, yeah, they could, but I mean, they also beat Boston. They beat the Nets twice.
Sixers.
The Sixers. Yeah. So, I mean, they're capable, and going into Charlotte, even though Charlotte didn't have all their guys, going in there and, when Charlotte's fighting for a playoff spot, it's important to them and winning. So, I mean, they're definitely capable of pulling off some surprises. So I wouldn't rule all that out, but right now I think that more than anything, it's not necessarily about the wins and the losses. It's about how you play the game. I mean, goes back to the beginning of time in all of sports. It's how are we representing ourselves? How are we representing what we hope to be is the future? And that's what they have to figure out now. And
hey, Sam.
To me, it's an evaluation thing. With Sexton and Garland, you've got to be real careful because you don't want to become the Sacramento Kings. And I write a lot about the Kings. I'm on a Kings fan page, and the Kings fans seem to probably like me even more than Cavs fans, which may or may not be a lot. But it's been 14 years since they've been in the playoffs or something like that. And they've got some nice young players, but they've just continued. It's like they say that every year. We've got some nice young players. Well, big deal. Eventually, how about winning some games? How about doing something meaningful? How about taking that next step? It's very rare that you go from, the bottom of the Eastern Conference to the NBA Finals in a year. You've got to take some natural steps. And that's, we won more than 19 games, to me, is not a huge step. You've got to take, you've got to get to, and this isn't the year to do it, but next year, you've got your lottery pick and you've made your trades, and now you've got to take that step and get that 8th seed, get crushed in the first round, learn from it. And then the year after that, you get the 6th, and then you lose probably in the first round again. And you got to keep building that way. But you can't keep saying, we're going to be good in 5 years. We're going to play for a title in 5 years, because guess what? Anybody in the entire league can say that. Yeah. At some point, show me that you can do it. And don't just keep telling me, show me. And we kind of, as a Cavs fan base, I think without LeBron, have always settled to, this is a nice young core. It's better than our Kyrie young core. And no, it's show me, start You could keep telling me how great and how much growth and how much improvement, but until it starts, showing up regularly on the court, then it means nothing. It's just talk. You have no proof to back it up. So I think at some point, ownership is going to get tired of hearing, we're going to be good in 3. Nobody wants to wait till they're 77 years old to see a good Cavs team again. They want to see something that they can cheer. Look how much fun it was at the beginning of the year when this team was surprising everybody and winning. Do you think any fans were saying, "Oh, no, keep losing, keep losing"?
I listen to our episodes every night before I go to bed. Those were the good old days.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying that winning is always more fun than playing the lottery. It really is. I know people don't think so, but it is. It's because you're taking steps, you're building a culture, and you're creating interest in your product.
Cleveland Browns, case in point right now, man. I mean, it's way more fun winning and having a stable team and having a direction than, all top 5 pick in the draft. Who are we going to draft this year?
Yeah, that got so old. It got so old because for the longest, for 20 years, it didn't work out, or 18 years, it didn't work out with the Browns, and they were constantly at the top of the draft. And, you don't want to be that if you're the Cavs.
Well, we will see what happens over this next week. Sam, we're going to record again next Tuesday on the 27th, and we should have a more clear picture of the future of this Cavs team, at least heading into the offseason, but what they can do and what they should do. Sam, it's always great talking to you, man. Always great.
Yeah, always great. And without making any promises, I'm going to try to get Chris Krause, who also co-owns 48 Minutes with me. He's the brains and the brawn behind 48 Minutes. I'm the looks.
Well, yes. So. Well, now that you've said it into the podcast realm universe, it's got to happen. People are going to be expecting Chris on the pod next episode. That does it for this episode of Cavs.
I will push for him.
NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to our presenting sponsor, Aligned Health Center. Got to check those guys out over there. They're doing an incredible job. Aligned Health Center. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. Follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Get all of his work and writings at 48minutes.com and outkick.com for breaking news, insider info, and more. Do not miss out. Sam, any final thoughts?
No, I will keep positive, and I will come back with some real cool stuff next week. I thought you had some really cool stuff this week, Sam. You do not worry. It will not be cool if Chris is not on the pod. So now he's got to be on the pod. We'll get him on here. We'll get him on.
All right. Well, that'd be great. Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.